So today I'm replacing the front brake pads on my 2010 Civic Si. It's a pretty easy DIY, so I thought I'd bring you along for the process. So even though I'm doing this DIY on my 2010 Civic Si, this obviously does apply to all 2006, 2011 Civic Si's, and indeed the front brakes on most Hondas with a traditional single piston caliper. So even if you don't have an SI like mine, this probably does still apply to your Honda. This time around I'm trying these new StopTech Sport brake pads. They're kind of a sporty street and track capable brake pad, if there is such a thing. They're pretty inexpensive, so I wanted to give them a shot and kind of see how they do. Let's open up the pads and see what we got. Money shot. Ooh. Cool, let's get started. So step number one, most people don't think about this, but it's actually to pop the hood. You might be asking why you want to pop the hood and change the front brake pads, and that's because you should always take off the cap of your brake fluid reservoir to relieve pressure off the braking system when you compress the caliper pistons. Step number two, pretty straightforward again. You're going to loosen the lug nuts on your wheels while the car is still on the ground. Most Honda lug nuts use a 19mm socket. Since we're going to do both wheels at the same time, I'm going to loosen lugs on the other side as well. The next step is to jack up the car. Now, most Hondas have a front and rear jacking point kind of right under here on the front and rear cross members. There's also the side jacking points on the reinforced parts of the pinch weld if your car is too low to reach the front jack point. Alright, so we're looking under the front of the car right now. For reference, here is the oil pan. So you'll notice, at least on the FA5 and FG2 Civic Si's, there's a front portion of the crossmember right here that's bumped down. This is an approved jacking point right here on the front of the car. And you'll see that on this car, like most Hondas, here's your pinch weld, and here's the reinforced part, the widened part of the pinch weld. This is a safe jacking area for your Honda. So put your jack stand there. This next step is optional if your car is filthy like mine. You're going to glove up for safety. Alright, since we loosened the lug nuts while the car was on the ground, we're going to take the lugs off and pull the wheels off. Alright, now that we have both front wheels off, we can access our brake calipers where the pads are. On a Honda, again, with these traditional single piston calipers, it's very simple. There are two 12mm bolts right back here on the caliper. One right here and one down here. We're going to leave the top one alone and we are going to take the bottom one out. So 12mm socket. And undo the bottom bolt. Alright, so the bottom bolt is removed. What we're going to do now is flip the caliper up. With these single piston calipers, once you remove that bottom bolt, you can just flip the whole thing up, and we're going to take out the old brake pads. They have these little guides right here, you'll notice, that kind of set the brake pad in the right place, so just slide them out. If you really need to, you can use a screwdriver for this. So here is the used brake pad. You can see these little detents here, these little notches are where the brake pad slides in to the caliper. The back brake pad comes out much the same way. Kind of pop it out. If you need to, you can use a flathead screwdriver here. You'll notice that the inside pad has this prong. You're going to want to make sure the new pads go in the same way. There's one prong for each side of the car. Sorry for all the noise. My neighborhood is just a very noisy place, kind of an industrial area. But let's do a quick comparison. Here is the old brake pads in EBC yellow. They were fine. Here is the new pad. You can see the difference in the brake pad material. So you want to take your new brake pads and slide them into place. You'll notice they are directional. It's not like a rectangle or a square. It is possible to install them wrong. Please don't. Just notice that the contour of the pad matches the face of the rotor. Let me grab the camera and show you what I just did. You'll notice these little ears on the brake pad help locate the pad inside the caliper. Just make sure they're lined up like that, and that the brake pad is lined up with the shape of the rotor. So we now have both brake pads installed, and you'd think we'd be done, but we are not actually done. Here is your caliper piston. You'll see how it's pushed quite far out. You notice my dust seals are actually pretty thrash. I'll have to replace those. So we need to compress this piston so that it can actually clear the brake pad. Here's the issue. See if they can contact with these new pads because they're much thicker than the old worn out pads. So my neighbor has started his daily prog rock drum sesh, trying to mind the music in the background. But as far as compressing the piston and the caliper, you can either use a C-clamp, a traditional clamp, and just kind of just squeeze it until it compresses in, or you can go to a nearby AutoZone, Pep Boys, or O'Reilly's and rent this disc brake caliper tool. This is a free rental. You basically give them a deposit of like 60 bucks, bring the tool back and get your money back. So the tool is pretty straightforward. Basically, there's what equates to a hand little press and a bunch of different sizes to fit the different kinds of brake pads and piston sizes. Basically what you do, you take this guy, put it on the inside of the caliper like so. Then you basically find which of these shims matches the diameter of your piston, and use a tool to just press the piston in. Now this is why we took the brake fluid reservoir off earlier, because it reduces the amount of pressure on the piston. Makes this much easier. So I'm not sure if you have access to the same exact tool. It's an OEM brand disc brake tool, but at least for my Honda calipers, the one labeled B seemed to be a perfect fit. So let's assemble this and I'll show you how to do it. Alright, so we have the compression tool, the B fitting that fits my piston size, and we have the backing plate. Just going to slip this over like so. Then I'm going to go over here, basically line everything up. So you want the backing plate on the inside of the caliper. And then you're just going to rotate the tool until you get this seated on your piston. My dust boots are shattered on this caliper. I need to totally rebuild this thing. But in the meantime, I have the compression tool set up. You can see the backing plate against kind of the face of the caliper. You have the tool right up against the piston, and it's just a matter of kind of twisting, and you can see it compressing. And you want to do this quite slowly, just kind of gently. Going super fast will damage the dust boots, which I guess in my case doesn't matter because mine are already trashed. Also, you want to be careful that you're not like grinding at the piston, so it should be kind of like seated pretty well flush, so you're not damaging it. All right, I think that should be about enough. So we're gonna back the tool off and see if we have enough clearance. We are clear. Caliper compressed enough to kind of go in and slip over the new fatter pads. You just put your bottom bolt back through the caliper slide and just tighten. All right. Do the same thing on the other side. It's the exact same process. Throw the wheels back on, tighten your lugs down to 85 pound-foot, drop the car down, and we're done. And don't forget to put the cap back on your brake fluid reservoir. Now let's grab our torque wrench and torque the lugs down. Alright, so we're done installing the brake pads. We're not quite done with the whole process yet. Because we compressed the caliper piston in, we're not going to have a very good brake pedal feel right now. So we want to get in the car, start it up, and we're going to pump the brake pedal a few times to kind of get the caliper piston seated against the brake pad properly again. So the brake pedal feels really soft right now. And after pumping the brake pedal for about 15 seconds, the pedal feel kind of feels back to normal. So now you can go for a very slow speed test drive around the block to make sure nothing's gone terribly wrong. And if everything checks out, you're done.